There's a conglomerate out there. A conglomerate determined to buy every single IP, every single company, every single video gaming brand. And that company is based in Sweden. It's called the Embracer Group, and we're going to get into it. And they've just purchased another couple of big IPs that you may have heard of, including Lord of the Rings. Let's get into it. So, guys, there's a company out there called the Embracer Group. You might have heard of them before, especially recently. They've been snapping up a bunch of different property IPs, intellectual rights for different brands, etc., etc. Developers, companies like Limited Run Games, who make all the limited run small video games from small developers. They're trying to buy everything that isn't like Electronic Arts in Activision Blizzard right now. And let's get into it. They've bought a couple of new properties. Let's go into it and let's talk about why they're doing all this. The one company or IP portfolio to rule them all. Let's get into it. So, this article comes courtesy of The Verge. The Embracer Group, the company forging one IP portfolio to rule them all, explained. The Swedish holding company doesn't own quite everything that's not Activision or EA, but it's getting there. And they've just snapped up the rights to the Lord of the Rings. Now, the Embracer Group is a doozy of a media company. It's 11 parent companies and a massive trench coat that are themselves composed of several more parent companies that own publishers and developers and the rights to video game franchises, both AAA and indie. Earlier today, it added a bunch more companies to its roster, including Limited Run Games. That's the company. That's the this place, Limited Run Games. This is the company that basically makes or publishes like physical editions of smaller games that maybe wouldn't otherwise get a physical release. And they do that for PS5, Nintendo Switch, etc., etc. I think my wife has a couple of limited run games. They're really cool. They come with a bunch of goodies too, like little guides and stuff like that. They're really cool little special edition games. Love limited runs and limited run, and it looks like it's now under the umbrella of the Embracer Group, as with everything else. And they've obviously purchased the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit rights just recently, and limited run games and Tripwire. Um, so they'll probably most likely make most of the money. So they're basically just well, how do you guys feel about these companies like going crazy, going ham, and just buying up everybody? Like, I know Microsoft has been making a lot of big purchases lately. As far as game studios are concerned, and now Embracer Group is a company that I keep hearing again and again and again in the mail. Where did they get this damn money from? They recently acquired big names like Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, and operate more than 100 game studios around the world, including Gearbox, who make Borderlands, Saber Interactive, and THQ Nordic. I know THQ sold off a lot of their Western development studios to the Embracer Group. And Saudi Arabia, the country of Saudi Arabia, um, purchased $1 billion stake in the Embracer Group. So there's a lot of players getting in. If you're extremely rich, you want a big stake in the video game industry as a whole, and a lot of the studios that are part of it invest in a little bit of the Embracer Group. um, so yeah, they bought about 8% of the company's shares with that $1 billion investment. How do you feel about Saudi Arabia? I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to, because that happens. um, they've also purchased. Oh yeah, the addition of limited run games opens the door to more physical games across its studios and games. So a lot of companies and developers that they've snapped up, they're obviously hoping limited run games will allow them to maybe ramp up physical copies from a lot of these smaller studios that they own, which is understandable. I just hope it doesn't take away from the specialness that is limited run games, right? I mean, look at that Doom 64 physical release, Nintendo 64 cartridge. Um, and just a lot of these cool special edition things, man. Like, it's so sad. I hope they don't shut this down or stop Limited Run being Limited Run again, right? And I think Limited Run's actually branched out into like Best Buy now, so they're an up and coming company. If you love your physical releases, and I know physical releases are kind of on the way out now, and I think companies like Limited Run are obviously going to get more popular over time. For those die-hard physical game collectors. Um, but yeah, Oh yeah, Tripwire is. They also purchased Tripwire, which is known for Killing Floor, Maneater, and Rising Storm. I know Killing Floor was big back in the day. I actually used to play that a little bit here and there. It was like it was just killing zombies. It was like Left 4 Dead, but a little bit more gritty. You know, the youth publishing group also announced today the acquisition of home karaoke system Singtrix and Teardown developer Tuxedo Labs. Embracer has been quietly building its giant publishing group, also known for its comics and entertainment brand Dark Horse. Dark Horse Comics. Jeez, they're just buying everyone up. The 5 acquisitions announced today are around $577 million in total upfront costs, and there's even a 6th secret purchase that Embracer isn't disclosing yet. Embracer entered into its agreement to acquire PC console gaming that, for commercial reasons, is not disclosed today. Gosh, jeez. Um, Sony obviously acquired Bungie for 3.6 billion recently. Take Two spent 12.7 billion on Farmville maker Zynga. I don't know. I wouldn't buy Zynga. I'm not a big smartphone guy, but obviously if you know much about money, then probably that was probably a good purchase. And then the massive gigantic purchase of Activision Blizzard that hasn't went through yet, but I think it's about to, with Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard for 69 billion dollars. $69 billion. Who doesn't have that in the bank, right? Um, but yeah, so yeah, they're obviously buying up a lot of companies, and so who are they, right? Who are they? Um, so it, like the Verge article says, to list all of Embracer Group's companies and assets would take an unreasonable amount of time and space, and would get kind of boring. So here are the high prof points in the company's portfolio. What video game franchises I've heard of does Embracer now own? So they own Little Nightmares 2. The developers that they own who make these games: Goat Simulator, Destroy All Humans, Time Splitters, Time Cop, Darksiders, Saints Row, Duke Nukem, Borderlands, which is probably one of the biggest names here, Valheim, Killing Floor, Deus Ex, and Tomb Raider. And they own a lot in the entertainment business as well, TV, comic, movie franchises. So they own Dark Horse Comics, which is a massive, well, the 4th largest comic publisher, who make Hellboy, Sin City 300, and Umbrella Academy, which is popping off, as you know, on Netflix right now. Naturally, this also means it owns the rights to all those comics' future movie adaptations too. But wait, there's more. Embracer Group also owns several physical game publishers, including a ton of licensed card and board games, and The Settlers of Catan. Um, Most of these companies and franchises were acquired in the last 4 years, so that's kind of weird, huh? Where are they getting all this money all of a sudden to buy all this stuff? Perhaps from shady countries like Saudi Arabia, perhaps. Um, so I started in the May of this year when I bought Tomb Raider and the Deus Ex franchises, which is a little bit sad. I mean, I'm not totally opposed to big companies owning everything. I just know big companies have a tendency to shut down things quite often. I mean, look at Starbucks when they bought Tivana, right? Or I think it was Tivana, right? Yeah, Tivana. You know, my wife was a big fan of tea at the time, and she liked buying tea, and going to Tivana, buying all these fancy tea collectible set things and tea. And Starbucks bought it. I guess they thought it was a threat to Starbucks. People were drinking more tea, and then they shut it down right after. And then everyone that loved tea in Tivana, well, you're SOL. So there's a lot of examples of that where big companies come in, they buy a smaller company that people love. Like, for example, in the tech industry, Fitbit came in and bought a company called Pebble that make the cool Pebble e-ink smartwatches. I was wanting to buy a Pebble. They got bought up by Fitbit, and then Fitbit shut them down, which was infuriating to me. And obviously, there's a chance of this happening with video game companies. When big companies come in, they have a tendency to shut down smaller companies and just merge them into the big company. And I don't think it's always a good thing. And that's why regulation exists. And that's why a lot of these government agencies try and crack down and audit these sorts of purchases to make sure that, it's in the consumer's best interest, basically. Um, um, the company said the deal brings in a compelling pipeline of new installments from beloved franchises and original IPs, including a new Tomb Raider game. I don't know whether like the purpose for buying all this stuff is. I think it's just for the money. I mean, I don't think they genuinely love these franchises, and they're like, oh, we have so many big plans. They're just like a big holding company that just wants to make money and harvest money from these things. It seems the company's long-term strategy is to acquire notable intellectual properties within the gaming industry and other IPs with which they can make games and other media. This has been Disney's strategy for over a decade. Today's purchase of limited run games also means that anything in Embracer's expensive back catalogue could see a physical re-release. And at the rate that Embracer Group is gobbling up companies, further consolidating an already increasingly consolidated market is cause for some concern. I'll say that. But to put the company in perspective to its peers in the industry, it would take about 8 of them to equal one Activision Blizzard. So while the company seems massive, comparatively speaking, it doesn't even crack the top 10 list of biggest video game companies, at least not yet. The Lord of the Rings deal presents huge opportunities to make gobs of cash with games set in that universe. It's totally within the realm of possibility for Minas Tirith City Management Simulator, or even better, a Barbie horse adventure style game with the Rohirrim. One can hope. So that was a rundown of what the Embracer Group is. It's obviously based in Sweden, which is not a bad country. Sweden's a pretty cool country, right? I mean, at least it's not based in North Korea or anything. I mean, who doesn't love Sweden, right? But there are a lot of people in vested interests that have invested in this company, so. Ooh, okay. Anyways, that is basically a rundown of Embracer Group. Like I says, they've purchased a bunch of different IPs lately. Like I says, big ones being Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I've never really played a Lord of the Rings game, but I know the IP is pretty big and it has a lot of potential. I mean, look at Skyrim, right? Look at Skyrim. Look at the Elder Scrolls, the universe, right? I mean, imagine if they tapped into that a little bit with the Lord of the Rings franchise. It would be pretty cool. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching this video. I'm Blaze2K. Thank you for joining me for this deep dive into the Embracer Group, who they are, who they've bought, who they own, what game franchises they're controlled and by them. And yeah, please click the like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for more gaming, tech, news videos, VR, 3D printing, you name it, we cover it. Everything that's techy and awesome, we cover it on this channel, or I try to. And I do a lot of news videos lately, so if you just want to see what's going on in the world of the gaming tech industry, just subscribe, click the bell icon. And if you want to support, which would greatly be appreciated, please click that join button down below. Become a member. Peace.